Good evening. Hello and welcome. I'm Nitin Gokhale and you are on StratNews Global. We're coming to you live from New Delhi. This is the month, in fact, just the last week. This is the week that 49 years ago, India, with the help of Mukti Bahini, the freedom fighters of Bengali origin in East Pakistan, now, of course, Bangladesh, created a new nation called Bangladesh from what was fully Pakistan. That is the subject of this week's Simply Nitin, which is coming to you live. But I'm not going to talk about the military operation of which you've heard at various forums. And in fact, I did one episode, you'll remember, about the largest airdrop in 1971, largest airdrop after World War II at Tangail, which hastened the end of the war between India and Pakistan, and a new nation was created. Today, in this episode, I'm going to talk about the Backroom boys, the Backroom cowboys, who helped in many ways to prepare the ground for the Indian military to hasten the end of the war, that is the 1971 war, in less than 2 weeks, a 13-day war that ended in massive military victory by India. That is the subject of this week's Simply Nitin. I am Nitin Gokhale. So, what role did R&AW, Research and Analysis Wing, play in creation of Bangladesh? Well, R&AW, which is India's external intelligence agency or foreign intelligence agency, was founded in 1968, barely 3 years before the 1971 war that created Bangladesh. It played a very crucial role. This is the current headquarter of the RNAW. That time, RNAW used to operate in various other buildings, various small buildings. It did not have its own building in 1968 or even 1971. But this is now the imposing building in New Delhi. So basically, this agency headed by RN Kao, who was the founder of the agency in 1968, a confidant of the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. He had established, or his agency had established, contact with Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, much before the 1971 episode of the genocide and later the war, because India and RNAW, headed by Kao, knew that there was an unrest that was happening in the eastern part of Pakistan, or East Pakistan, as it was known then, before it became Bangladesh. Now, Kao founded the agency, as I mentioned, but he or his agency had contacts with Awami League much before that. And the man who actually led that operation of keeping in touch with the Awami League and especially with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was a man named P.N. Banerjee. And P.N. Banerjee was the man who had the confidence of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He was the one who used to go to East Pakistan. He was, of course, a Bengali. And his initials, the second part of his initial, Nath, actually became his pseudonym or his alias. Here is the man, a very rare photograph of his. Is the man sitting next to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the man sitting to the extreme right of this photograph. His son is standing, the tall, lanky young man on the left of the photograph, who's known as Bobby Banerjee, a former journalist, used to be my boss in Telegraph newspaper, the Telegraph of Calcutta. And his father, P.N. Banerjee, was the man who was the fulcrum of India's East Pakistan operations or Awami League operations. He was the one who had established contact. He had the confidence of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He had access to Mujib's household right from before he became a prominent leader. And therefore, he helped Banerjee, or Nath Babu, as he used to be called in East Pakistan or later Bangladesh, helped establish a very deep connect between India and the East Pakistan population or the leadership of Awami League. Now, he used to know East Pakistan very well, and he helped India understand what was happening inside East Pakistan, the unrest, the political churning that was happening in East Pakistan. All that happened because of Nath Babu. Now, at the headquarters, of course, RN Kao led the organization, that is the R&AW, and he and his number two, Sankaran Nair, was the main leadership in the headquarters in Delhi. The two actually complemented each other very well. Sankaran Nair here in the photograph is on the left. RN Kao, of course, is on the right. Sankaran Nair and RN Kao were perfect combination of a leader and his number two. While Kao had the task of keeping in close touch with the political leadership, especially Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, her close confidant PN Haksar, and General Sam Manekshaw, the army chief that time, later Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. RN Kao used to liaise with them, we used to plan a lot of operations or strategy with them, while Sankaran Nair was the key operations man. He had extensive contact in West Pakistan, in the army establishment of West Pakistan, or that time Pakistan. And he, in fact, had such deep inroads into the Pakistani army headquarters that in late November 1971, one of his moles, Sankaran Nair's moles, in the office of President Yahya Khan, who was also the chief martial law administrator in Pakistan that time, he gave him a tip-off that Pakistan was going to attack India, Pakistani Air Force, on 3rd of December. And sure enough, as we know now, and I have detailed all these operations in this book I wrote last year, exactly around this time it was launched in late December. In fact, this was launched in Delhi first, and of course later in other parts of the country, where the entire details of what happened in 1971 have been listed here. So Sankaran Nair's contact told him that there will be an attack by Pakistan, and sure enough, the attack did come. But because India was forewarned, all the Indian Air Force assets were removed from the western airfields in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir and Haryana, and therefore the air raid by Pakistani Air Force was not at all effective. That set the ball rolling. The war was declared. That gave India the reason to join the war, and rest is history, as they say. That 3rd of December, the war started, and 16th December, 93,000 Pakistani soldiers surrendered in East Pakistan. The war, remember, was fought on both fronts, west and east, but the main thrust was in the east. Now, there, the Indian army or the Indian military was helped in large measure by the Mukti Bahini. The Mukti Bahini was an organization under the Awami League, or they were called freedom fighters, who were trained. You can see them bare-chested, not trained in warfare, but they were trained by legionary general in the Strategic Frontier Force, or the Special Frontier Force, SFF, led by Major General Uban, who was very close to RN Kao and had trained the Tibetans for insurrection and infiltration into Tibet post the 1962 war. General Uban then was given the task of also training the Mukti Bahini at various camps on the border of East Pakistan and India's northeast, in Tripura, in Assam, in Meghalaya. And he nearly trained about 6,000 to 8,000 Bengalis who were part of the Mukti Bahini to prepare the ground for the Indian military to go into what is called, you can look at this, these kind of camps were held, and these Mukti Bahini fighters helped India prepare the ground, sabotage the various installations inside East Pakistan, sabotage supply lines of the Pakistani army, Also, various bridges and roads were sabotaged by the Mukti Bahini. And of course, as you know, like I mentioned in the episode on Tangail, that the Mukti Bahini prepared the ground for India's paratroopers to drop at Tangail. They secured the place, they identified the place first, then secured it. So Mukti Bahini played a large part in creation of their own country, a separate country, Bangladesh. Of course, helped by the military might of India that time. All three services, Army, Air Force, and the Navy, contributed to that decisive and major military victory that India achieved against Pakistan. But that was thanks to the Mukti Bahini playing role behind the scene. They, as I mentioned, were trained by SS Oban. The R&AW coordinated all the operations of the backroom operations, I would say, of liaising with the Mukti Bahini, General Oban and RN Kao sitting here next to each other. And the gentleman here, just as an aside, who is speaking at the mic is the younger brother of the Dalai Lama. And this photograph is from the SSF headquarters in the hills of Uttarakhand, now Uttarakhand, then Uttar Pradesh, where RN Kao, again in his long overcoat, heavy overcoat, is with General Oban, who had trained the first the SFF, of course, and the Mukti Bahini. Now, there's an interesting aside that I want to bring in before I tell you that how Bangladesh, when it was being created, the R&AW had started, as I mentioned, liaising with Mujibur Rahman and his other close friends and leaders in the Awami League. They used to meet P.N. Banerjee or Nath Babu, used to meet Mujib and his friends and his colleagues, sometimes in London, sometimes in Brussels, sometimes in Hong Kong or Singapore, because that is where finally it paid off that India had deep inroads into the Awami League leadership and they knew exactly what they wanted. So India fanned the unrest in East Pakistan because India wouldn't have gone in for the war had it not been for the genocide launched by the Pakistani army in East Pakistan, which resulted in millions of refugees. Some say nearly 7 to 8 million refugees streamed into India's northeast and in West Bengal. And India was facing the burden of feeding them. India, remember, was not as prosperous a country in 1971. It had its own poverty. It had its own challenges of feeding its own people. It was not a rich country. And yet, India housed these refugees. India looked after them. But as the burden started growing, the feeling in the Indian establishment, led by Mrs. Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister, was that finally they had to take a decisive action, military action in East Pakistan. And for that, a lot of backroom planning was done by RN Kao, who's standing behind Mrs. Gandhi in that photograph that you just saw, and his boys. They came to be known as cowboys, KAO, cowboys, for various reasons because they achieved the impossible in many cases. There are several other episodes of creation of or merger of Sikkim with India in this book. I'm not plugging the book, it's 1 year old, it's done very well. But if you want to know more about the R&AW, which celebrated its 50 years in 2018, there is a lot in this book that I was privileged to write in 2019, exactly 51 years later. And it's basically talks about RN Kao, the founder, the leader, the organization builder, who helped create Bangladesh, who helped merge Sikkim into India, which was, remember, a separate kingdom, and of course, did several other things in between. He was considered to be one of the best spy chiefs anywhere in the world. He was a gentleman. He did not. He was not James Bond. He didn't go into enemy territory or behind enemy lines, but he ran agents. He gave a leadership. He gave direction to a fledgling organization like R&AW, which was proven to be, which proved to be an excellent success story in 1971. at the height of its powers in 1971, the RN&AW played the backroom role, but a very crucial role in creating Bangladesh. Remember, 1971 was a seminal year because that's where the map of the subcontinent changed. Creation of a separate nation, a new nation, was facilitated by RN&AW's backroom maneuvers and backroom manipulation, if you want to call it, and of course the operations that it led. And then was the final punch. The military punch was provided by the Indian military, the three armed forces, and we know now that next year in December 2021, Bangladesh and India together will celebrate 50 years of the creation of the new nation of Bangladesh. The celebrations have already started. This is the 50th year. We entered the 50th year of that celebrations on 16th of December. Today we are speaking on 19th of December. And that's why I thought, while a lot of exploits of India's militaries are well known to many people who watch not just Simply Nitin, but many other defense and strategic programs. But maybe the role of the R&AW was not so well known. So therefore, this episode of Simply Nitin. Before I sign off, I want to share two announcements. One, this was the last Simply Nitin of 2020. This has been a horrible year in many ways for many of us. Corona and China have dominated the headlines, have dominated the discourse. We at StratNews, of course, have kept our focus on both these issues, both worldwide and at our borders, what is happening. We will come back in the new year. And of course, I want to appeal to all of you who are watching this program or will watch this program. This is going live right now, but those of you who will watch it later, I want to appeal to you that good journalism, credible journalism, informative journalism that we practice costs a lot of money. We don't take money from dubious sources. We want to be absolutely upfront about what we do. So if you do support our kind of journalism, please do contribute, please do donate, please do subscribe, and keep watching not just Simply Nitin, but StratNews Global. I wish all of you great success ahead, a happy new year, and season greetings to all of you watching StratNews Global and Simply Nitin. I am Nitin Gokhale.